Hello there. I'm Rev Nhien, founder of Evolving Enneagram. If you've been seeking a compassion-based contemplative approach to Enneagram-informed transformation, you are certainly in the right place. This is where contemplation meets the Enneagram. So we are in week 3 of a 12-week Sunday talk series based on the theme, the care of the soul. And throughout these weeks, I'll be drawing inspiration from my book, The Enneagram of the Soul, a 40-day spiritual companion for the 9 types. This week, our talk is entitled Kairos Time and the Power of a Sacred Pause. For those of you who are following along in the book, I'll draw from the 9 activations, which are on page 123, 124. It's day 12, Self-Restraint. So let's begin. So let's begin by exploring the power of a pause. Not necessarily a sacred pause, really any pause. So, what public speakers, are trained in often includes not just how they speak, right, but how they pause. It's really interesting. If you study public speaking, you know that people are taught when you walk up and you begin your talk, pause first. Before any key point that you make, pause first. Before a big announcement, pause first. The effect of this pause is a different kind of listening space that you create. It's palpable if you've ever tried this, right? When you can hold, not with anxiety, holding the pause because like you're afraid of what to say, but like holding it with presence, this pause, this breath. On the other hand, if you've ever had a conversation with someone who won't pause, like you can't get a word in, right? You're trying to dialogue and that person doesn't even take a breath. And yeah, like that person has no space for another person or even like another thought, another thing to happen than that momentum of speaking or thinking that's happening, right? And of course, you might be thinking, oh, yeah, I'm that person actually. Yeah, like when I'm talking, it's like, oh, maybe I'm nervous. So, we might see this more often. I think that sometimes people associate this momentum with like threes. We're fast, right? Threes, sevens, eights, the assertive types on the Enneagram, which are, don't got time for this pausing business. And sometimes type sixes can also do that where there's anxiety in the talking. Again, I'm not saying that like across all numbers we can have this happen, but just being aware of how in that, I'll call it again, momentum, there isn't space. And I am very deliberately not picking on certain numbers because the point of today's talk is to say that there is a momentum to all our numbers at, say, the average level of health. And today's talk is really about cultivating a sacred pause that allows for us to put a spoke in the wheel of that, of your type's fixation, so we can break free from the fixation of the type and from a spiritual perspective actually have space for something else to emerge. I might call that spirit, that sacred pause. The reason I want to say that this isn't just about like those of us who are fast in the outer is because you can equally have a type 9 who's like, oh, yeah, and I don't worry about me. I pause all the time. In fact, you got to kind of help move me along. And I'm like, no, the momentum of um, distractibility, the momentum of comfort seeking and trying to break that pattern, put a spoke in the wheel of that, is to me the same thing. It just looks different in the outer world, but is not different in the realm of consciousness, where again, there's a momentum to our type structure that we want to break. So I want to say that the value of doing this, cultivating this sacred pause, I think a good example of how trying to just improve ourselves or effort our way into another life doesn't work when we don't actually transform or change consciousness. Like this is exemplified, I think, in American culture, in that, let's say, most of us agree that American culture is a type 3 culture that has historically valued productivity, right? Speed, I would say even youth related to our capacity for doing and achieving, and progress, right? Like progress being about like the American dream. And so, from this traditional way of looking through an American 3 lens, it makes sense that progress means things that help us to do things faster, right? And we saw that. It was amazing. Like when the microwave was invented, and we're like, oh my gosh, you can cook faster. Cooking is what all of us need to do, and you can do this more quickly now. So all of our lives are going to be improved by this like quality of life, right? And of course, we know that that is not what happened. Instead, the baseline for how much you're expected to do in a day now that you could cook so quickly, right? Like that's what happens when consciousness isn't changed and we just make progress from the egoic level of like, yes, from a 3-ish lens, right? We're getting more of this. And so understanding that the pause makes room for something different to emerge, a transformation of consciousness. Again, from a spiritual perspective, it's like I call it a sacred pause. If we're intentionally pausing to allow space for spirit to inform this moment and for us to possibly make a different choice. That to me is true, even call it American freedom. True freedom is the ability to actually make an intentional choice. We might make the same choice that we were making along the lines of this momentum, but the difference is we actually got to choose because of the pause. And so, even thinking about if we integrate true sacred pause into this notion of like, oh, yes, I was able to do that more quickly now because of this new technology. And now, oh, instead of now filling that up with something else to do, I can actually take this moment to savor or enjoy my existence, my being here now. Of course, Nazi concentration camp survivor and psychotherapist Viktor Frankl is famous for popularizing this teaching. It's uncertain whether he actually originated it, but he's famous for saying, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Those of you who have been following me for a while know that this is one of my all-time favorite sayings. But it bears repeating, right? To consider the power, the freeing power of this intentional space making that we do when we cultivate pauses throughout our day. And I would say the difference between like just a pause, that's a regular pause. It could be like a strategic pause you do for speaking, but it could be a real sacred pause where you open yourself up to the spirit. And along those lines, I want to share a teaching from the Bible, actually, that there's a teaching in the Bible around two different kinds of time. One is in the Greek Kairos time and also Greek chronos time. And chronos time is the time that we're most regularly familiar with. And you think of the word chronos, Chronos, that's the root word for chronology. This is like regular measurable time. And at the time we think of when we're scheduling things, we're living in like ordinary worldly ways, right? Super important, nothing wrong with chronos time. It's measured, it's linear, it's what we experience daily. But there is reference to another kind of time in the Bible. And I think in all like wisdom traditions of the world, almost like for me, this is my translation of it, it's like time, outside linear time. For me, it's like the eternal now that Eckhart Tolle talks about. It is uh, when translating the biblical notion of it's been seen as a time that is an intersection of like divine purpose with our human lives. It's like sacred time, a way I believe like the eternal enters into the space of our everyday lived chronological lives, if you will. So, in this space, I believe we have space for grace and giftedness, something that breaks the causal chain of the personality and makes space for the soul to have more life, to have more existence. And so, this is how I wanted to preface this exploration of day 12, self-restraint. Why? Because I didn't even want to give this talk the title self-restraint. I was like, who's going to Google self-restraint? It's not like a value in our world, right? This because we're like, oh, freedom, like freedom of expression, as if freedom means more, not less, not restraining ourselves, not containing ourselves in any way, but actually making space for excess, right? That's kind of the default orientation of our modern notion of like freedom. But what about the freedom to choose? And what if self-restraint actually gives us more freedom because we have this ability in that moment to choose from living from our personality to actually living more from our soul? And that's the setup I wanted to offer you before launching in to these 9 activations by Enneagram type. I open with this quote by Paulo Coelho, author of The Alchemist. Sometimes our power resides not in what we do, but in what we don't do. So the following activation is about resisting our habitual type patterns so that new ways of being and of thriving can emerge. By exercising self-restraint, we make space for a power greater than ourselves to express itself throughout our lives. Before I launch into the activation by type, if you're following along, you'll know that I'm going to add some editorial like addendums to just give you part of the value of following me here on this channel. I'm going to give you a little bit more than just what the typical like reader is getting, and offering you a little bit of information as to why I wrote it this way and what I'm trying to get at. I also wanted to do this for those of you who are now certified or becoming certified to do book journeys using this book, I want to support you in having this background information to lead and guide people through these chapters as well. So, taking this moment, pausing. Type 1. The stress of seeing and shouldering all that might be improved in this world can knock you down physically and emotionally. Before you declare defeat, place your entire burden before the altar of the divine. Let infinite wisdom return to you only the responsibilities that were legitimately yours in the first place. So consider that you decided that these were your burdens, but instead placed them all onto that altar, and then prayerfully consider what is truly yours to take on. Type 2. Feeling thwarted in your ability to help someone you cherish can bring up feelings of desperation or worthlessness. Letting yourself lovingly accept your own human limitations is the beginning of feeling the true humility that brings you closer to divine love. So for you type 2s, you're not generally needing to be helpful to everyone. It's usually just those special someones that can trigger you when you're not able to help, or maybe they don't let you help. And so recognizing that there's a push outward to try harder that way, the sacred pause allows you to go inward. And so really allowing yourself to rest in this place of you think it's yours to help with. Maybe the universe or the divine does not think so, and that's just the humility of resting in this inner space, and that you are enough without needing to be helpful in that regard. Type 3. If you're not planning way ahead, you tend to feel way behind. Surrender any sense of urgency about getting anywhere other than where you are today. Take deep breaths, focusing on your heart center. Invite yourself to trust that you are worthy based on who you are and not the person you are striving to be. You are exactly where you need to be. So the momentum of the 3 that keeps moving that goalpost back, right? So it stays unattainable and keeps you moving forward rather than resting in this moment where worthiness is actually available to you from the inside out, right? But it's like that going after prevents you from being in it and knowing that you are indeed exactly where you need to be. You don't have to be further along. For the 4, stop abandoning yourself by buying into the cheap and easy label that you are broken. No matter what you have been through, you have always been divine and whole. What if you lived today with a grateful heart and just assumed this to be true? So, for the 4 that tends to fear abandonment, you notice I moved it in. I was like, you actually abandon yourself when you leave it for some ideal of who you would be when you're not broken, not tragically like suffering, right? And that allows you to fully receive the divine in Kairos time, in the sacred moment of being beautiful right here and right now, beloved. 5, there is a resource of energy, ideas, and passion that can be experienced in relationship. Cultivating your heart's capacity to receive this storehouse takes practice. Make the effort to connect with someone through a phone call or a kind gesture. Reach out today rather than just reaching in. So for the 5, the habit of withdrawing for enough is what we want to put a spoke in the wheel of. It always feels like going in is the way to restore yourself. Just like, I mean, compared to the 3, always, you can easily see in the other types, you're like, oh no, the 3, like all that activity is not going to get them what they want, right? But we can see that in you as well. Like that withdrawal, that I would say the compulsive withdrawal. It's not like sometimes it doesn't help. It's just that what you don't know is that there is also resource in relationality. And even though it might be harder in the beginning, so it feels like it's more work at first, it's always more work to break the gravitational pull of our types. So it can feel like it's depleting you at first. But when you begin to rest in this space and allow for the sacred to emerge, then who knows, right? Like be open to the mystery of what happens that you don't know is available to you as a resource in the space of togetherness. For the 6, your gift of scanning for threats and dangers can blind you to the wide open fields of your own flourishing. Take breaks from fortifying your life and dare to delight in the simple joys that are familiar or that have newly blossomed. Sometimes for 6s, even friendship and community can be tricky because they're like, oh, this is part of what the world needs, which is more joyful friendship and community. But there's an energy in 6ness that what I'm actually doing in this building is still fortifying my life, right? To focus on security building and making sure these friendships are intact, all the things, right? So a way of living that allows you to not have to worry about even those relationships, to not have to continue to, again, fortify your existence through your networks or through your net worth, right? Gives you space for the grace of easeful living, right? Give some space for that. For the 7, your lack of focus is a defense mechanism against the threat of pain, boredom, and limitation. But recognize that the need to hop around mentally or physically in every moment is its own prison. Break free of your pattern of inattention and practice bringing your charming self to patiently attend to the here and now. So you put a spoke in the wheel of that self that is like, here you are, you're talking about something, you're saying, you're just about to jump. Right there, that's where the pause can happen. Right before you're about to jump, and you just bring yourself back and allow the giftedness of spirit, by whatever name, to emerge. The 8, your resistance to being controlled can be life-saving, but it can also work against you. Notice what you are automatically rebelling against, which may be quite good for you. Imagine the universe has something amazing in store for you, something exponentially better than what you had planned, right? So notice what you are automatically rebelling against, which may be quite good for you, right? So that againstness is the momentum, right? That fight is the momentum. Nothing wrong with it, right? Nothing inherently wrong with it. Just a bummer if that's all you can do in response to life. So put in a spoke in that wheel through catching it, and that pause for something else to potentially emerge. And I know some of you eights out there are thinking, yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm already doing that in my life. It's starting to happen, and that's awesome. So for the 9, rest from your distractibility and from your busyness attending to others' agendas so you have energy to focus on your own authentic priorities. Recognize that your gusto for action tends to wane as morning turns to night. So live more fully into your divine potential by consciously releasing inner resistance to your personal priorities. Do the harder things first each day. So here's the tricky part for 9s. You might think that you build up momentum by just getting started with activity. That could be the case. But what's tricky is we don't need you to just build up momentum to act, period, just to act, just to get moving. The idea is to get moving on what matters to you, right? And so that's where that piece about prioritizing your priorities first. There's just such a strong default to comfort seeking, to going with the flow, that if you don't prioritize getting to know yourself and then making choices for your personal desires, like at the forefront, then it's like this slidey slope that goes downhill as the day goes on. And again, this is from the stance that your desires actually matter, right? That they're worthy of this. In 12 step, there is this motto, let go and let God. So consider that the pause, the self-restraint from the habit of your type, it's like, here's the habit. It's like going this way. You just catch it, you release it. Just take that moment and release it. Let go and let God by whatever name. Let go and let love. Let go and let a power greater than your separate self be active in your life and in our world. Namaste.